Hi, my name is Scott. It is June 23rd, 2020. I've been getting beat up for about 4 days because I sent out that link to the UN requesting more information. So they are pretending to throw a tantrum. They're saying that everybody would have missed the deadline had I not sent out the link. So they've been hitting me in the stomach for 4 days. I've been curled up in a ball for about 4 days. I'm really tired of the pain. I'm about to go to the emergency room. I figure I'm going to make a videotape before I go because this is just ridiculous. I'm trying to document everything that's happening. What I really wanted to discuss with you, and I've had this written for a little while, it's been difficult for me to get it out, is cyber torture documentation and how important that is, because you go to the police, you go to the FBI, nobody believes you. You go to the media, nobody believes you. The only person in the world who really trusts or believes you is yourself. So the importance of documenting what's going on with you is extremely important. Just make sure you don't represent a threat to yourself or anybody else in society. Whatever you write down stays there forever. So be real careful about what you write down. Do not demonstrate that you're a threat to yourself or anyone else in society, or you will have the police at your door, and you will end up on a 72-hour hold, at least 72 hours. Documenting electronic harassment and cyber torture. I'm the recipient of V2K, remote neural monitoring, and cyber torture, and wish to document the crime to the best of my ability, so I'm ready when a law enforcement agency is willing to listen. I've taken some information from some articles, and I'm putting all this information on the internet. It's going to be under Cybertorture documentation.blogspot.com. In there you'll find the links that I've put into the articles where I've taken the information, so you can look at it for yourself. Again, the article below discusses documenting a crime scene. I want to take as many procedures and methods that I can that can be applied to targeted individuals. The article is crimesceneinvestigator.net. In the article, the author says there are actually 3 functions or methods used to properly document the crime scene. Those methods consist of written notes, which will ultimately be used in constructing a final report, crime scene photographs, and a diagram or sketch. I keep a journal with dates. I take photographs of microwave burns and other injuries that I sustain, and I diagram or I sketch the range of feelings and emotions I experience with graphs. Next, the author in the article recommends the notes be in chronological order and should include no opinions, no analysis, or no conclusions. Just the facts. When you're documenting your cyber torture, you just want to put down the facts. He recommends documenting what you see and not what you think. I know this can be difficult with mind control weapons, but you can document how you feel without speculating how it's done. The less speculation used, the more credibility you're going to have. The author goes on to list various other crime scene processing and evidence collecting and putting together a report. The gist of what I wanted to take was no opinions, just the facts. Write it down, chronological order, take pictures, draw graphs. All of those are submittable to a judge or a law enforcement agency or a court at some point. The best way to capture the pain and anguish is to create a daily written log. I use Google Docs because I can create a Word document with the dates, write a description, and even post photos. All of that goes into one document, and I just keep going, date after date after date. When the torture becomes unbearable, I set up the video camera and describe the pain as it happens. I use the video camera when I don't have the patience for writing it down or the pain is too great. As long as you don't represent a threat to yourself or anyone else in society, you can write down whatever you want. I recommend having a detailed diary of what you're going through so it is ready when you need it for a doctor or an investigative journalist or a law enforcement agency. They can't keep the technology a secret forever. You want to be ready and organized to present your documentation when the opportunity arises. You can make a mistake by not documenting enough, but not a mistake by documenting too much. I recommend keeping all of your documentation in one place so it's organized and can be retrieved quickly. I keep receipts for doctor visits and procedures. Also, I keep the stubs for all the medications prescribed. I document my attempts to maintain a healthy lifestyle. I take the advice of all of my doctors. Furthermore, I plan on being reimbursed for the medication and doctor visits, so I keep all my receipts. The main thing I really wanted to talk about were the changes in the body that occur as a result of exposure to directed energy that can be measurably documented. Targeted individuals experiencing gang stalking, voice to skull, remote neural monitoring, and cyber torture should have less white matter in their brains because they are being manipulated with directed energy weapons. The goal is to measure and gather physical evidence of directed energy on the human body in an effort to prevent further abuse against citizens. We hope to capture the effects of directed energy weapon abuse on the brain through an MRI T2 Flair test. The test measures the amount of white matter in the brain so we can compare it to other brains of similar age. The attacks directed toward the U.S. diplomats in Cuba were described as a sonic weapon or acoustic attack. The description is very similar to what directed energy weapons are capable of. Thousands of Americans and people around the world are complaining of the same exact symptoms and being ignored by authorities when they complain. Citizens are being experimented on involuntarily while an attempt to manipulate their thought process continues constantly. The United Nations Rapporteur coined the term Cybertorture to account for the tremendous amount of pain used in the attempts to control the mind. I've got 4 articles I've listed that talk about the U.S. diplomats in Cuba, all of which mention the brain differences of the diplomats. According to the articles, the U.S. diplomats had less white matter in their brain as compared to 2 control groups. The diplomats' white matter measured 542 cc, and the control group averaged 569 cc. Therefore, the U.S. diplomats averaged approximately 5% less white matter in their brain after being hit with directed energy weapons and exposure. In addition, the U.S. diplomats had evidence of lowered connectivity in brain subnetworks that process sound and vision. I'm not really concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is measuring the white matter in our brains. Magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, is one of the most commonly used tests in neurology and neurosurgery because it provides detailed images of the brain. MRI imaging sequences consist of 3 different types: T1 weighted images, T2 weighted images, and the fluid attenuated inversion recovery, Flair. The MRI T2 Flair stands for T2 weighted fluid attenuated inversion recovery. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I'm taking this off the internet, giving you a blog with the links to the same articles. In the article, How to Measure the Amount of White Matter in the Brain Using MRI, they discuss nerve cells in our brains and how they communicate with each other through electronic pulses. The article discusses white matter in the brain and what it is needed for. According to the article, white matter of the brain represents conducting nerve fibers with a special electric insulating sheath, which is called myelin. Due to the myelin, nerve impulses are transmitted approximately 5 to 10 times more effectively in terms of speed and required energy than nerve fibers without myelin insulation. The article goes on to state that it is important to measure the amount of white matter in the brain because myelin provides effective signals transmission between nerve cells, and it is critical for normal brain work of the brain. Finally, the author asserts modern methods of magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, allow us to estimate the amount of white matter by calculating the ratio between the amount of water inside the myelin sheath and the total amount of water in brain tissues. The MRI T2 Flair test will allow targeted individuals to capture the exposure to directed energy weapons by documenting the percentage of white matter compared to gray matter in their brain. Targeted individuals should exhibit less white matter than compared to a normal brain, approximately 5%. I believe the electronic harassment progresses in the following order, and that the MRI T2 Flair test should be grouped by age and by people who experience gang stalking only, voice to skull and gang stalking, remote neuromonitoring, voice to skull and gang stalking, and finally all of the above: cybertorture, remote neuromonitoring, voice to skull, and gang stalking. These 4 levels of harassment would give an indication about the amount of directed energy being used on a given person at the time of the test. I believe all of the groups above would demonstrate to have less white matter in their brains due to the exposure to directed energy. However, people who experience all of the 4 above may exhibit more damage and less white matter than the others due to the constant bombardment. After we have gathered as many MRI T2 Flair tests as possible, we can have an attorney on our behalf approach the agencies responsible for regulating and prosecuting directed energy weapon abuse. These agencies would be under pressure to either investigate our complaints or risk being sued because we have physical evidence of being abused by directed energy weapons. I will be scheduling an MRI T2 Flair test to measure the white matter in my brain as soon as the COVID-19 pandemic subsides. The test should be covered under insurance if authorized by a doctor. My pain doctor in Los Angeles is willing to order the test because he has at least 2 other patients complaining of the same phenomenon. Anyone interested in participating in a group presentation to the authorities and other equivalent agencies should order this test, and please get in contact with me by email. You can reach me at mindcontrolinformation@gmail.com. Again, my email is mindcontrolinformation@gmail.com. The test is an MRI T2 Flair test, Flair test. Is going to be covered through my insurance, which is Medicare. My pain doctor is willing to order it. I will be ordering it as soon as things calm down with the pandemic. And anyone interested should please get in contact with me. If not getting in contact with me, at least get the test done so you can document the directed energy exposure to your brain, because it's constant and they don't let up for anything. If you'd like more information about my story and what I've written, that can be found at cybertorture.blogspot.com. Everything in this vlog is going to be written in a blog under cybertorturedocumentation.blogspot.com. Again, if you need to reach me, my email address is mindcontrolinformation@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and I hope this all goes away soon.